Hi, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Hope your week is going all right. My thoughts are with all the folks in Houston and Texas right now. Really sending my love, and I hope that everyone is safe. And I wanted to jump in and do kind of a video blog about some audition tips this fall, and also give you some really cool feedback about the recent American Idol audition that some of my students went out for, and some of the cool stuff that they discovered through doing that audition. So, okay, let's just give you guys a little bit of a background if you didn't hear about this. I had someone from American Idol reach out to me and ask me if I had some talented singers who might be interested in auditioning for American Idol. I was like, wow, that's a really cool invitation. And American Idol is kind of rebooting, and they have a new host, Katy Perry. And, the whole thing sounds like a really cool opportunity. So I reached out to my wonderful students, and some of them were super pumped and tried out. And so I got in contact with this American Idol contact person and shared some of the videos. And she invited my students to audition at the open call, and they actually even got this kind of cool VIP thing where there's just between you and me a little kind of cool shorter line experience. So it was at Jack London Square. It was just a couple Sundays ago, and I was, to be honest with you, feeling a little nervous because there still hadn't been anything announced about this audition. Like a few days before, I was like, is anyone going to show up? Like, what's going on besides my students? I guess they announced it a few days before, and they said that there were like at least 5,000 people there. So word spreads fast when it's a really big audition. And I totally remember having that same experience when I went out for Rent, when it was doing its touring audition. They opened it up after their first run in New York City, and there was this big open call audition in San Francisco and downtown at one of the fancy hotels. I remember that there were thousands of people there, and it was raining, and we were standing out in the cattle call line that was kind of, snaking back and forth. And that was an awesome experience because you're just like at this kind of big party. So let me give you some cool tidbits, some kernels, some golden kernel nuggets from some of my students and their experiences of this audition. One observation that one of my students made was kind of a cool thing, but a thing that can be really hard for people, was this was an open public audition. They actually had it outside. I was laughing. I was like, oh my gosh, they exposed people about as much as they could. It was outside at Jack London Square, outdoors. Like there was no building or room or anything. And they had judges lined up at tables, and then they had the performers in these kind of, what was my student referring to them as, because she's also a swimmer. She was calling them sweats, I think it was. I don't know. I'm not a swimmer. I do not know these things. Anyways, there were like 4 or 5 people lined up, and then your row would step up, and then each of you would sing your song one after the next. So this singer got to kind of observe some lines before her going. She said that pretty much every girl sang the same popular Rihanna song that's out on the radio right now, and that most of them were dressed in the identical way. She said the moment look is like this off the shoulder, one shoulder off look, which cracks me up because, by the way, that's Flashdance from the 80s, I'm just saying. And distressed jeans that are all torn up, and then some kind of shoe. I don't even know what kind of shoe it was. But what she was saying was that it was like the uniform that all these girls were wearing. She found that kind of funny. And she, with her more unique self, was wearing like white jeans and some colorful shirt. And I was like, good for you, because she was standing out and being more authentic. So what I want you to make note of from that is to think about how you're presenting yourself, both with your audition material and with just yourself, and how you want to stand out a little bit. If you look like every single other person that comes in there, it's going to be really hard to distinguish, especially if you're all quite talented, right? What sets you apart? Why should I choose you? Why should we have you versus her or him? And so picking a song that not everybody else is doing, not the #1 pop song on the radio, not the #2 pop song on the radio, not a song that's by Rihanna or Adele or Beyonce, who then you are going to be compared to, and who wants to be compared to those singers? You just don't want to do that. And then when it comes to your outfit, just get a little creative. Like, I mean, even if you're a trendy girl, think about something that you could do that's just a little bit more unique. I mean, maybe you wear that same Flashdance sweater, but you wear one papa color necklace on it that makes you stand out. Or maybe you don't, maybe you wear jeans that are different than the same trendiest thing. Avoid the super trendiest stuff of the moment. The joke is you think it's going to make you look cool and stand out, but it actually makes you look just like everyone else. Okay, another piece of feedback that I thought was really interesting was from one of my really talented performers who said, I did it and it was a great experience, but I kind of feel like they were just dialing it in for us, and it seemed like they only called back a couple people and she didn't get a call back. And I think in there I sensed a little bit of discouragement from her. That's real, I get it, but I want you to realize that at these open call big time auditions for things like American Idol, for things like Rent or Hamilton, who I've coached people for, your chances of actually getting into these things are not big, right? I mean, just look at the numbers, But you are doing so many great things for yourself. One, you are stepping it up and going out there on a professional level audition. And for American Idol, they made them register, they made them have a whole packet that they needed to present. It kind of puts you on your A game because you're not trying to show up not knowing what you're doing at one of these sorts of auditions. It's good. It's a good challenge for yourself, even if you know it might be a long shot. Number 2 is that each time you audition, it's a win for you, because you are strengthening your audition muscle. And especially if you're someone younger, how do we get better at auditions? By auditioning, right? And so this is such a sort of safe thing to actually audition for. It's a long shot. That, what are my chances? But why don't I just go for it then? So I actually think that doing these big call auditions are great for developing that muscle. And don't forget what our other singer learned, which was she listened to how many people chose the same song. You learn a lot about what not to do at auditions as well, right? So that's another way that we're developing our audition muscles, especially for when it turns into something that maybe is even more personal and high stake for you, like, getting into a musical at your school or getting into a college program or a professional, piece that you want to get into. Last but not least, what was I going to share with you? I wanted to make sure that my students were rewarding themselves. And I wanted to make sure that they did it in a way that really validated their experience. So I asked for some victory photos from them where it's like, I won the marathon, I did the American Idol audition. So I got a couple of photos, which was really fun. I didn't ask permission if I could share them, so I won't. And I also think that it's fun to give yourself a little treat reward, like, I don't know, it's frozen yogurt or a smoothie or a coffee if you're a coffee addict like me. And to also just sort of mentally give yourself a love mental hug. That takes some serious nerve to put yourself out there at an audition. You are exposing yourself. You are putting yourself out there and opening yourself up to rejection and judgment. I mean, who signs up for that kind of stuff, right? You have to be kind of crazy to do it. You also have to be extremely brave. And so I just want to make sure that each time you're going out on an audition, that you are giving yourself the props that you deserve afterwards, right? No matter how that audition goes, no matter how well you do, or if you bomb it, you still got to tell yourself I did it, right? Then later on, you can review and process what worked, what didn't work, what could I learn from this, what can I do for next time? Processing it is great. I love journaling. I love talking it over with someone who you trust, especially if it's someone who's in the industry who kind of knows what you're talking about, so that you can learn and take that audition muscle, develop it, and it grows. Boom, 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 until you start landing parts and having fun and knowing how to play that game, because it really is an audition game. And you've done it, and you've kind of been through it all, and you kind of know the play, and you're ready to show up and just like do it. So remember that you want to give yourself a little reward no matter what happens. I personally remember that I always had this sort of like coming down after an audition, like I'd have all this adrenaline in my body, and it would manifest itself in this weird way. I would leave my audition and I'd feel like I wanted to cry. I think I did cry sometimes. And I almost felt bad and ashamed and embarrassed. And at the time, I didn't know what that was about. At the time, when I was like a really young performer, I just thought that was something unique to me. When in fact, now that I've worked with so many people, I realize, oh my gosh, that was just adrenaline. Like if I could talk to my young self, I would say, that's okay. That's because you were holding so much. You were holding it together, you know. It's like your little kid when they come back from a long day of grammar school, and then they come back to you and they're like, whoa, and they let it all out. I can attest to that. And so be kind to yourself, no matter what you need to feel and go through after an audition. That's okay. That's valid. And just don't beat yourself up or feel judgy about it. You want to kind of move through it and, move on to the next one. Because again, you've just developed that audition muscle that much more. So those are my kernels for the day. You do see that I have my cute little book here that I just wrote a few months ago, and I kind of wish that everyone that went out to that American Idol audition had read my book, because one of the biggest first rules I say is do not pick the most popular song. Think about how you're presenting yourself so that they'll remember you, and just like a few of these things that will really, I think, give you an advantage. All right, so Jessica Neighbor here. Reach out to me. Let me know how you're all doing. I want to know if you're in shows or if you have a big audition coming up. Give me a shout out. And yeah, I'll talk to you soon. Until next time.